Where are you watching this story from? Tell us in the comments. Let's begin. I never imagined that, at 58 years old, I would be standing in my own son's living room, listening to him say that I'm a useless parasite. Just like that. No filter. No shame. That word cut through me like a rusty blade, tearing, in seconds, everything I had done for him for decades. Everything I gave up, everything I gave, out of love. Him. James. My son. It was nighttime. The house, on the outskirts of Asheville, barely lit. And me, with a knot in my chest that barely let me breathe. I just wanted to tell them that I had left my job. That I did it to help when the baby was born. To be there. For the family. But James didn't even let me open my mouth. And Rachel, his wife, with that ironic little smile, interrupted me as if I were a bad joke. And how do you plan to survive without a pension, Mom? In this world? And there she was, Deborah. Rachel's mother. Sitting like a queen, watching from the couch with those icy eyes. Helen should be more realistic, she said in a deep, venomous voice. At your age you can't afford to be taken care of. Go get a job. I turned to James, hoping for even one word, a gesture. Nothing. Silence. He always believed I wasn't enough. That I didn't measure up. That I was nothing but a burden. Rachel's family was one of those who think they're superior, old money, important last names. To them, I was just a poor woman. Invisible. Lesser. Rachel, always so put together, so elegant, so fake. With that sweet voice that cut like a knife. She looked at me like I was in the way. And her mother, Deborah, didn't even bother to hide her contempt. Once, I overheard her, without her knowing I was near, saying to someone. She was always a maid. How shameful for James to have a mother like that. Good thing he married my daughter. I took a deep breath. Tried not to break. I left my job so I could spend more time with you, I said, trembling, but trying to sound firm. Rachel, you're going to have the baby soon. I thought I could help after the birth. Or take care of the baby while you rested. I thought my words would touch something. That they still saw me as family, as a mother. But Rachel just laughed. Dry. Cold. Postpartum care? And what do you know about that? We already hired a nurse. A professional. You just get in the way. And then Deborah chimed in again, as if rehearsed. Taking care of a newborn is not easy. You need training. Not someone who only knows how to clean houses. Both of them. Coordinated. United to crush me. My face burned. But not from shame. It was fury. I looked at James. All I wanted was for him to defend me. A word. Something. Nothing. He was checking his phone, like I was just a shadow. James, I whispered, do you really think I'm a burden? He looked up. His eyes were red, but not a trace of compassion. Mom, we need money. With the baby on the way, everything is going to cost double. It's not the time for you to stop working. You're still strong. Why don't you keep at it? I froze. After everything, that's what he thought of me? I had saved him. Raised him. Fed him. Clothed him. I bought this house for him. And now he wanted me to go mop floors, to support his family? James. I bought this house. Every cent came from me. I worked extra hours. I didn't sleep. Don't you remember? But Rachel crossed her arms, smiling smugly. Yes, you bought it. That's why we let you stay. Otherwise, you'd be in some random apartment. Deborah nodded, like it was the most logical thing in the world. I looked at James again. Do you really want me to go back to cleaning floors? Keep paying for this life while you call me a parasite? James frowned, as if he was tired of hearing me. Mom, don't make this difficult. We're just asking for help. You always said you wanted independence. So prove it. I laughed. Bitter. Hurt. Independence? You talk to me about independence? I raised you alone. I risked my life for you when those dogs attacked you. I left my husband, my house, my stability, everything. And now you say that to me? He shrugged. You chose that. I never asked you to. If you don't want to help, just say it. But don't expect us to take care of you when you've got nothing. Nothing. That word hit me in the chest like a brick. I looked at all of them. And then I understood. They never saw me as family. I was a servant. An ATM. A walking favor. The rage boiled inside me. But I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I grabbed my small suitcase. Where do you think you're going? Deborah asked, pretending to be concerned. You can't leave your son like this. I stopped. Turned. Looked her straight in the eye. He is my son, I said with a cold voice. I saved him from death. I gave him my entire life. But if he thinks I'm a burden, then I'm no longer his mother. James jumped up like a spring, red with anger. Mom. You can't leave. You owe us everything. I looked at him. At that boy I rocked. The one I sang to every night. And I felt empty. What do I owe you? I said quietly, but sharp. I paid for everything. With tears. With blood. I owe you nothing. I opened the door. I walked out. And I didn't look back. The winter wind of Asheville hit my face as I dragged my suitcase along the sidewalk. But I wasn't cold. I didn't feel anything. Just a burning inside, as if something in my chest had just awakened. It wasn't sadness. It was something else, something rawer. More real. It was rage. I walked aimlessly, with clumsy steps, as if every footstep echoed what I had just left behind. The place that was once my home, no longer was. I found a cheap hotel by the roadside. A flickering neon sign blinked, as if it, too, were exhausted. I asked for a room, went upstairs with my suitcase, and collapsed on the bed. I pulled out an old photograph from the side pocket, James, about 5 years old, smiling next to me in the park. His eyes shone back then. Now, that image felt like it belonged to another life. I wondered, when everything had broken. The next morning, I called Rachel, my friend Rachel, not my daughter-in-law. She worked at an art gallery downtown. I just needed a place to think. A place where I could breathe, without being judged. She didn't ask many questions. She just said, Helen, come right now. I have a small apartment above the gallery. Stay as long as you need. I thanked her. Packed my suitcase again and moved into her apartment. It was simple, a bed, an old table, and a window overlooking the street. I placed the photo of James on the table, even though it hurt to look at it. Because I no longer saw the little boy in the image. I saw the cold eyes from the night before. That same day, Rachel invited me downstairs to see a new exhibit. I didn't feel like it, but I agreed. I needed to do something, anything, to keep from falling into the abyss. The paintings were full of color, of life. But I couldn't connect with any of them. Until Rachel took me to a corner. There was a small painting, a woman standing in the middle of a field, looking into the distance, as if searching for answers. Does it speak to you? She asked me. I looked at it for a few seconds. And without knowing why, I remembered the early days with James. When I adopted him. When I didn't know if I could handle it all. I told Rachel my story. But not the recent part. I told her about the beginning. When I saved James from that stray dog. When I took him to the hospital. They told me he'd need several surgeries. I had no money. Nothing. But I didn't give up. By day, I worked at a tailor's shop. At night, I cleaned offices. On weekends, I baked cookies to sell at the market. Every dollar I earned went to his medical bills. James was hospitalized for 3 months. I went every day, with old storybooks bought from flea markets. I read to him, even though he was so little. I just wanted him to know he wasn't alone. When he was discharged, I rented a tiny studio. A single room. With peeling walls and creaky floors. I placed his crib next to my bed. When he had a fever, I stayed up all night. I sang the same songs my mother used to sing to me. I never told him that part. I never wanted him to feel like a burden. But I remember every night. Every penny counted to buy his formula. Every time I refused to buy something for myself, just so I could give him something better. He grew up. I sent him to a nearby public school. I woke up early to prepare his lunch, even when my body ached from working so much. He loved to draw. I bought him some cheap colored pencils. I pasted his drawings all over the wall. He drew houses, trees, and a woman he called Mom. And I felt proud. When he was 12, I started working for Clara, a wealthy woman who owned a furniture store. But here, I'll change her name too. Clara will now be Victoria. Victoria treated me like a friend. She talked to me about art, took me to exhibits, gave me books. I worked with her for 18 years, from James's middle school years until he graduated college. Every month, I sent him money, even though he was already living with Rachel. I worked extra hours to pay for his university. I turned down studying painting, so I could help him. When he got married, I gave them the house. I had spent 10 years saving up, working myself to the bone. The day they moved in, Rachel hugged me and said, "You're a model mother, Helen." And James took my hand. He promised me, "Someday I'll take care of you, Mom." And I believed him. Sitting in Rachel's little apartment, looking at the photo on the table, I realized those promises meant nothing. 3 days later, I got a message from James. "Mommy, we need to talk. You shouldn't have left like that. I'm sorry for what I said." My hands trembled. Part of me wanted to believe him. To trust. But I remembered that night. His stare. Rachel's words. The humiliations. I didn't reply. I went out to buy a lottery ticket. Not out of hope. Just out of habit. An old impulse. That night, on TV, they read the winning numbers. I glanced at my ticket absent-mindedly. 1, 2, 3. They all matched. I couldn't breathe. $9 million. I called the lottery center. The woman on the other end confirmed with a cheerful voice. "Congratulations, ma'am. You've won the jackpot." I froze. With the ticket in my hand. Thinking that if nothing had happened, I would have shared that joy with James, the very day his child was born. I imagined him hugging me. Thankful. Calling me Mom with love. But now, after all that, I wasn't so sure anymore. I put the ticket in a wooden box. Next to the photo. And I didn't tell anyone. Not even Rachel. I needed time. To think. To decide if, this time, I was finally going to choose myself. A few days later, Rachel invited me to have lunch at a small cafe near the gallery. The sun barely filtered through the winter clouds, and the cafe smelled of toasted bread and distant memories. We were chatting, trying to keep the conversation light, when suddenly, Deborah walked in. Fur coat, designer purse, and that strange smile that only shows up when someone wants to seem polite, but isn't. "Helen, I heard you were here," she said as she sat down, without being invited. "James is devastated. You can't stay mad at him. He's your son. He needs you." I looked at her blankly. Let her talk. She always had something to say. I know you're hurt, she went on in that syrupy voice, but you have to understand, Rachel and James are under a lot of pressure. The baby is almost here. They need support. If you don't help them, everything will be harder. I heard there's an opening at the nursing home. They pay well. You could give it a try. I gripped the coffee cup with both hands. I could feel the blood boiling in my veins. But I took a deep breath. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Deborah, I said slowly, looking her in the eyes. I gave James everything. Everything. If he sees me as a burden, then I have nothing left to offer. She frowned, as if I had spoken a foreign language. You're his mother, she insisted. You have a responsibility. You can't abandon him. I stood up. Left some money on the table. And in a calm, but firm voice, I replied. That responsibility has already been fulfilled. If James wants to see me, he can come himself. You have no part in this. And I walked away. That encounter burned inside me. I had wanted to believe that maybe things would change, that there was still something left to save. But no. Deborah was the final blow. The last confirmation that, to them, I was nothing more than an inconvenience. That night, in Rachel's apartment, I opened the wooden box. Took out the lottery ticket. Held it under the yellow light. And I knew what I had to do. No one would humiliate me again. Never again. The next morning, I called the lawyer Rachel had recommended, Daniel. Small office. Glasses perched on the tip of his nose. Shelves stacked with papers. When I showed him the ticket and the prize confirmation, his eyes widened. Mrs. Harper, he said, adjusting his glasses. Congratulations. This changes everything. But you need to protect yourself. Have you told anyone? I shook my head. No one knows. I want to make sure it's fully protected. That no one can touch it. Daniel was thorough. Trusts. Separate accounts. Full legal protection. I signed everything. With each signature, it felt like a broken piece of me was mending. A few days later, I started searching for a new home. Something just mine. I couldn't stay at Rachel's forever, even though her company was the only warmth I had left. I searched online until I saw it. A house on the outskirts of Asheville. Modern. Mountain view. Large windows. Expansive gardens. A spacious living room where I could finally paint again. It cost $2 million. And I could pay for it without blinking. I called the real estate agent. She scheduled a viewing for Saturday. When I arrived, I was greeted by a kind young woman, Clara. Soft voice. Genuine smile. She walked me through the house, pointing out every detail. I only half listened. In my mind, I was already decorating every corner. Until a familiar voice made me turn around. Helen Harper? What are you doing here? Sophie. Deborah's niece. Poisonous gaze. She also worked at the real estate agency. She hadn't expected to see me. I came to see the house, I answered calmly. Is there a problem? See it? You? Buying this house? Don't make me laugh. You're just a maid, Helen. Don't waste Clara's time. Some employees looked our way. Clara tried to calm her down. I'm working with Mrs. Harper. Everything's in order. But Sophie didn't stop. In order? She doesn't have even $1,000. She's just here to dream. Like so many others. Can't you see it? I took a deep breath. I wasn't staying silent anymore. You know nothing about me. I'm here to buy the house. And I will. Today. She laughed mockingly. With what money? What you make scrubbing floors? Please. Clara tried again to stop her. Sophie, enough. Mrs. Harper has provided proof of funds. Sophie snatched the folder and flipped through it with disdain. 9 million? This is a joke. I know her. She lives off charity in her son's house. She has nothing real. People began whispering. I took out my phone. Opened my bank account. Showed the balance. $9 million. Total silence. Sophie turned pale. Where did you get that? She stammered. I won the lottery, I replied. I don't need to convince you. I turned to Clara. I want to sign right now. Clara nodded, excited. As she prepared the paperwork, the office manager appeared. He looked at Sophie with clear disapproval. You insulted a client. Leave immediately. But she's just. Enough. You're suspended. Possible termination coming. I said nothing. Didn't look at her as she left. I signed the contract. Transferred the funds. Received the keys. Clara hugged me, with a warm smile. You're incredible, Mrs. Harper. Thank you for trusting me. I returned the smile. But deep down, I knew one thing. This was just the beginning. A few days later, I moved into the new house. I bought a large easel, high-quality oils, soft brushes, and started painting. The first brushstrokes were clumsy, unsure, like my hands had forgotten how to create. But it didn't matter. I wasn't in a hurry. For the first time in a long time, I was painting for myself. One afternoon, while making tea in the kitchen, I saw the security camera notification flash on the screen. James. Standing at the glass door. Hands in his pockets. A lost expression. He didn't ring the bell. Instead, a few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a message. Mom, I heard you won the lottery. Why didn't you tell me? We need to talk. I read those words like they weren't from him. My fingers trembled, but I replied. James, if you're coming to talk, come as a son, not as someone looking for money. He didn't respond. That night, Rachel called. Her tone was sugary sweet, so different from our last conversation. Helen, James is really sorry. We want to invite you to dinner. Your family. We need you. As I listened, it became completely clear. They weren't hurting because they had hurt me. They were hurting because they had lost access to $9 million. I stepped into the garden. The sun was setting behind the Blue Ridge Mountains. The breeze brushed my face, and I knew I had to go. Not to reconcile, but to make things clear. I wrote back. I'll come to dinner. But don't expect anything from me. I wore a simple dress. Nothing fancy. Nothing to impress. Just a woman who no longer let herself be stepped on. James opened the door with an awkward smile. Mom. I'm sorry for what I said. Come in. Rachel greeted me, cradling her belly. Behind her, Deborah sat, with her eternal venomous smile. So nice to see you again, Helen, she said, dripping with false sweetness. We sat. Dinner was served. No one mentioned what had happened. Rachel broke the silence. Is it true you bought a beautiful house, Helen? Yes, I replied calmly. I won the lottery. I thought it was time to think about myself. James coughed, staring at me. How much was it? I looked at him, without blinking. 9 million. Silence. Rachel forced a smile. Deborah leaned forward. Helen, that money could secure the baby's future. You should consider it. I put down my utensils. Looked at all three of them. I wanted to give it to James when his child was born. But after calling me a burden, after telling me to clean toilets, I'm not sure you deserve it. James slammed the table. Mom. I'm your son. You can't do this. Rachel jumped in, almost begging. You're part of this family. You can't be so selfish. Deborah stood up. Who do you think you are, hoarding all that money? You think you're better than everyone? I stood as well. My voice was ice. Family? You called me a parasite. You scorned me. James isn't my blood. I chose him. I raised him. And even then, he betrayed me. I owe you nothing. You have no right. James shouted. I turned from the door. I won it, James. And you're no longer my son. Remember that. I walked out. My heart was pounding. But not from sadness. From freedom. As I drove home, I got a message from Sophie. Think you won? You cost me my job. You'll regret this. It didn't scare me. But it was a warning. The people who had underestimated me weren't going to give up easily. The next morning, I called Daniel. Daniel, I said, I'm being threatened. I want everything protected. We met the same day. I showed him the message. This is harassment. We'll document everything. We can file for a restraining order. Do it, I said. I'm not running. He also suggested going public, to take control of the narrative. I thought about it. Yes. Do it. He arranged an interview with a local reporter, Mia. Young, sharp, direct. Mrs. Harper, how does it feel to win $9 million? I'm just a working mother. And now, I want to live for me. Do you plan to share it with your family? I thought about it. But when I quit my job to help them, they called me a burden. They demanded I get another job. They didn't appreciate anything. So no. They don't deserve it. The article was published with a photo of me, brush in hand. From housekeeper to millionaire, the Asheville mother who chose freedom. Rachel called me. You're the talk of the town. But the attacks also came. An anonymous email. You're selfish. Your son is suffering while you swim in money. You'll pay for this. I forwarded it to Daniel. He opened an investigation. Meanwhile, I decided to move forward. I dove into my passion, art. I found a gallery for sale, downtown Asheville. White walls. Natural light. Perfect for creating. The owner, George, was an older man. This place used to be the artistic heart of the neighborhood. But I don't have the strength anymore. I want to bring it back to life, I told him. He agreed to sell it for $1.4 million. We signed. I paid. We renovated everything. New walls. Lighting. A space for kids' art classes. Rachel helped me connect with local artists. I painted every day. And I created a central piece. A woman standing in an open field, head held high. I named it, Freedom. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. We planned the first exhibition for the end of the month. I sent invitations to Asheville's artistic community, posted ads on social media, and booked a small space in the local newspaper. On opening night, the gallery gleamed. Warm lights. Paintings illuminated. People chatting with glasses of wine in hand. Rachel stood beside me, wearing a blue dress that matched her vibrant energy. Helen, you did it, she whispered. Look around. This is yours. I smiled. But the smile faded when Deborah walked in, with a group of women dressed in arrogance. They entered laughing loudly, drawing attention like they were celebrities. Helen, Deborah said with her venomous grin, I didn't expect you to actually pull it off. A gallery, for a former maid. Some people turned to look. I didn't respond with anger. I just said, I'm no longer a maid. This is my dream. And it's already happening. One of her companions, wearing dark sunglasses, added. I heard you kept all the money. Poor James. I took a deep breath and turned to Rachel. Show them the main piece. Rachel led the crowd to the center. There it hung, freedom. I stepped forward and spoke, my voice firm. Thank you all for coming. This painting tells my story. It's not about money. It's about respect. I spent years trying to please others. Now, I just want to stay true to myself. Applause. But Deborah snapped back. True to yourself? You abandoned James when he needed you most. Abandoned? I asked. To a son who called me a burden? To a family who humiliated me? Silence. A man in the crowd said. She's right. Mrs. Harper deserves respect. Deborah left, her entourage quiet behind her. That night, I sold 5 paintings, including Freedom, for $20,000. I donated everything to a foundation for orphans in Asheville. Days later, they came back. James. Rachel, her belly now round with pregnancy. And Deborah. The intercom buzzed. I didn't invite them in. We want to talk, Rachel said, her sweetness now obviously fake. We want to start over. We can't do it without you, added James. Deborah was more direct. You have more money than you need. It's time to think about family. I said nothing. I closed the door. James pounded on it, hard. You won't get away with this. I called Daniel. I want a restraining order. Now. While he worked on it, Rachel called me again. Helen, Noah is posting things about you. I saw the post on social media. My mother won millions and abandoned us while we're expecting a baby. Hundreds of comments. Some supportive. Most cruel. I didn't respond. Rachel, I said, will you help me with a second exhibition? I want to tell the real story. She agreed. I painted 3 works. 1, rescuing the stray boy. 1, counting coins in the kitchen. And 1, standing firm outside the senior home. I called them, The Journey. The second exhibition surpassed the first. People cried, applauded, felt moved. I told my story, without fear. A woman approached me. You inspire me. Don't let anyone tear you down. But from the doorway. James. Dark. Not stepping in. Not speaking. I knew he hadn't come in peace. That night, I began a new painting. Blue. Like the Asheville sky. The next morning, Rachel arrived with a stack of letters. You need to read this. A young woman had written. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to start over. An elderly man. I'm going to try to speak with my son again after years. Thank you. Tears. But not from pain. From hope. I decided to transform the gallery into a community art space. Free classes for kids. Every Saturday, the place filled with laughter and paintbrushes. An 8-year-old girl, Lily, painted her late mother. I painted my mom so I wouldn't forget her, she told me. I hugged her. That moment reminded me I was healing. That I was helping. Daniel called me. James's post has been taken down. But there's another anonymous account attacking you. I saw the post. Eli Harper isn't what she seems. She won the lottery and abandoned her family. I didn't respond. I sent everything to Daniel. And I went back to painting. A few days later, Rachel invited me to an art workshop in Asheville, where local artists shared techniques and experiences. I brought a new painting titled Sunrise, a field of sunflowers bathed in sunlight, full of light and hope. There I met another woman named Clara, an older artist who had been a student of my former mentor. Helen, she said, taking my hand with a warm smile, I've heard about your gallery. Clara would be so proud of you. We talked for hours. She invited me to a big exhibition in Charlotte, scheduled for the next month. You have a gift, she assured me. Don't let anyone extinguish it. I accepted. For the first time, I believed I could be a real artist. But then, James came back. Not in person this time, but through a letter sent directly to the gallery. Mom, it said, I know I made mistakes. I don't want the money. I just want your forgiveness. Can we talk? I held the paper. A part of me wanted to believe him. I remembered his childhood drawings. But I also remembered his insults, lies, and public attacks. I didn't respond. I kept the letter as a reminder, not all that seems like remorse truly is. The exhibition in Charlotte was a turning point. I brought 5 paintings, including Sunrise and the trilogy The Journey. The place filled up, collectors, students, artists. A woman named Margaret bought Sunrise for $15,000. She said it reminded her of her own struggle to rebuild. I sold 3 more paintings, for another $35,000. I donated half to the Orphan Foundation, and used the rest to expand the gallery. Clara hugged me. Have you found your light? Never let it go. I returned to Asheville, renewed. But the past didn't rest. One morning, I turned on my phone. A video was going viral. James, in a cafe, crying to the camera. My mother abandoned me, he said, his voice breaking. I only wanted her love. But she chose the money. Thousands of views. Hurtful comments. Accusations. Judgments. I called Daniel. This is defamation, he said. We can demand a retraction and damages. I agreed. But it wasn't enough. I want to tell my side. Live. No filters. Rachel looked doubtful. Are you sure? I have nothing to hide. We streamed live from the gallery. I sat in front of the camera, with the journey behind me. I'm Helen Harper. The mother James has publicly condemned. And this is the truth. I told everything, how I saved him from the streets, how I gave up everything for him, how they insulted me, how they demanded I clean bathrooms again to be useful. I showed documents, receipts, proof. I won millions. I thought about sharing it. But they treated me like a burden. I decided to protect myself. I chose to live. We ended with an announcement. I will donate an additional $10,000 to the Children's Foundation. And this gallery is open to anyone who needs healing. Thousands watched the video. This time, the comments were different. Thank you for your courage. Now I understand. You are an example. Some questioned. Why did you cut off all communication? Because love is not allowing abuse, I answered. I gave everything. But I also deserve respect. Days later, Daniel confirmed. James took down the video. Posted an apology. And we have a restraining order. He can't mention you on social media. I was grateful. But not relaxed. And rightly so. Another letter arrived, through Rachel. Mom, I don't want to fight. I just want you to come back. I promise I'll change. I didn't reply. I painted a new canvas. A woman on a hill, looking at the horizon. I called it, Rebirth. The gallery grew. I collaborated with schools. Organized workshops for kids in need. Lily, the girl who painted her mother, was now a regular student. One day she gave me a drawing, me, brush in hand, smiling. I want to be strong like you, she said. I hugged her. I felt like I was finally building a real family. A chosen family. One built on love, not guilt. Then, another blow. A message from Rachel. James had an accident. He's in the hospital. Please come. I froze. Rebirth still wet on the easel. Sunlight streaming through the window. I read the message over and over. Was it true? Or another manipulation? I called Rachel. I told her. What if it's another lie? She asked. I'm going to find out, I said. I called Daniel. Can you verify this? Hospital. Police. Anything. Hours later, he answered. No accident. No admission. No report. It's false. I closed my eyes. I was grateful. But it hurt. Not because of the lie. But because of what it meant. I replied. If it's true, send me the medical reports. I won't come without proof. They didn't answer. And I knew. I'd made the right decision. James had been everything to me. But I was no longer the same. Now, I understood something that had taken me a lifetime to learn. Love is not giving up on yourself. I stepped into the garden. The rose bushes were blooming. Red. Intense. I closed my eyes. I breathed. And for the first time, I felt no fear. Only peace. I had fought enough. Now, it was time to live for me. And only for me.